hope Juliette already started that. Then the introduction is a little bit missed. So today we will talk about the tale of two cities. How are public authorities steering public smart charging? We have three speakers. My name is Edwin Westerbeeldje. I will do the moderation. I ask everybody to put that in the chat, the questions on this. First, I want to give the floor to Gert-Jan Geurts, who is talking about the city of Utrecht and also about the research you did together with the colleagues of Scale on smart charging in different cities. Second, Eva Sutherstedt from the city of Stockholm, explaining about the strategy of Stockholm. And third, it's Angel Lopez from the city of Barcelona. And after that, we will do a panel discussion. So if you have any questions, please raise it in the chat. And then we will discuss it with the three panelists, which will be then also the same people who are doing the presentations. So now I think we can start with Gert-Jan. Please, I'm not sure who's going to give the presentation, but you can at least present what is going on in the whole Scale project and also in the different cities. Here you go,
okay, thank you, Edwin. And hi all, welcome to our Scale webinar, also from my side. And I have the honor to do a short intro. On the first, we're waiting for the slides. But as public authorities, we want to learn from each other, and we need to learn from each other to facilitate the e-mobility transition and also the energy transition in general. And we all have our own tales to tell. And with many similarities where we can help and inspire each other, but also local differences that we as public authorities must take into account, of course. For Utrecht, we also have our own story. This is basically our challenge. This is what we expect for 2030. And in any case, any scenario, it will be a strong growth in compare to now. We translated this into a charging plan map for 2030, as you can see on the next slide. And in addition to passenger cars and buses, an important challenge for us in the upcoming years will be vans and trucks in connection with our zero emission zone, starting off in 2025. And also for corridor charging, for long range trucks that drive along Utrecht, since Utrecht is a very central, or maybe the central located city in the Netherlands. And in Utrecht, in the next slide, you can see a bi-directional car, Ioniq 5. We have been investing for years already in our bi-directional ecosystem, as we call it, so that EVs can help to balance the energy grid, and with this support also a more sustainable and cost-efficient mobility and energy transition. Different cities, different stories, all to learn from. And that is why we did our Scale research. Utrecht is one of the partners in Scale, on the needs and challenges of European cities and regions on the subject. Now, we interviewed and surveyed a significant group of decision makers spread out around Europe, as you can see on the map. And in general, there's a clear need for a few things. As you can see in the next slide. So, and that's validated knowledge on the subject, concrete examples from other cases, and best practices to support that real integrated planning of e-mobility and energy systems. Since EVs consume a lot of energy, and we need to fit that in the local grids. And there's a need for detailed requirements for smart charging and V2G, as well on the software as on the hardware side. So, which we can put in, for example, tenders in our areas. And based on this research and then the conclusions we also derived from it, we formulated 5 recommendations for the European Commission, since Scale is in a European project, and recommendations for other European cities and regions. And the first one is to accelerate and scale up the dissemination of knowledge about smart charging and V2G, including the establishment of an online knowledge center, but also things like this, what we're doing right now, organize webinars to exchange knowledge and also to connect to each other. So feel free, very welcome to connect, for example, to me after during the webinar, Yeah, so we can be in contact and can learn from each other and exchange knowledge and ideas. But also a recommendation is to synchronize between cities, also on tooling, digital tooling, which are we strongly believe are essential for a good planning and integration of EV mobility and the grid. We're busy in the Scale project working on smart tooling for this. So if that's also of interest to you, feel free to connect. Also strong recommendations to solve the chicken egg problem for smart charging and V2G with the policy superpower of the EU. The EU is a policy superpower, and concrete, we mean with that, put smart charging requirements at the European level for public and semi-public charging points, and also require for starting in 2027 in our recommendation, with V2G ready cars, requirements for V2G ready cars, starting with the high-end models. Now, fourth recommendation is to incentivize public accessible charging infrastructure, also on private land, but with the condition that they will be smart, so where the cars will be charged smart and off-peak. And the fifth one, last one, is implement stricter energy efficiency policies, also for EVs, since every kilowatt hour not consumed is also something we don't need to get from the grid. So that's definitely important, and there's a huge difference between even comparable EVs in energy efficiency. So many cities, many tales to tell and to learn from. Now the interesting tales of the cities of Stockholm and Barcelona. And I wish you a wonderful learning experience for this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Gert-Jan. And again, to the audience, if you have any questions to Gert-Jan, please put it in the chat. At least, maybe also you can explain that it is a question for Gert-Jan or for Eva or for Angel. So please put it in the chat, and then we explain it in the panel discussion after the presentations. Now I want to give Eva the floor. I think you started with sharing your screen and the presentation is on, so that is okay. Please, Eva, welcome and explain what is happening in the city of Stockholm.
Thank you very much. I work for the City of Stockholm, the Environment and Health Administration, and I'm in charge of the Clean Vehicles and Fuels program. And I have very much been involved with the introduction of charging in Stockholm. So I'm going to give you an overview of that. So, we have the estimation of the number of the increase of electric vehicles in Stockholm and in Sweden. And well, in Stockholm and Sweden, actually, last year, 60% of the new car sales were either electric or electric hybrid. About a third was electric, a third was electric plug-in hybrid electric, and a third was regular or petrol and diesel and other. And we have a large increase, and we estimate so by 2030 at least 90% of the new car sales will be vehicles that needs charging. So that means that at least 50% of the entire vehicle fleet, at least 50% will need charging in 2030. So there is a lot of charging that we need to take care of if we're going to facilitate that. And since we want the introduction of electric vehicles to happen, we need to make sure that there is charging available. So we started with off-street parking in large or parking facilities off-street, and we have a company, Stockholm Parking Company, 100% owned by the city, and they have several facilities. They have 30,000 parking places that they own or manage from others. And right now they have 17 facilities actually with 100% charging, where all the different charging spots, parking spots in the facility has charging. And in 2026, they should have have 100% because that's what have been decided by the politicians. And they work with smart charging, so they use with balancing of load. So that means that they can put up all this charging. And I mean, in the beginning now, there's not going to be a car charging at all the places. And once it is, you can steer the load so that it works. So you don't have to pay as much when it comes to upgrading the facility with the right effects and so on. So we also have over 200 charging units on street now that we call them charging streets. We group the charging, as you can see on this picture. So there are several side by side along the street. And we think that's a very good way to, when you dig for many at the same time. And it's also easier for the car driver, EV driver, because you go there and there are several spots there. So it's most likely you will find an available space. All in all, there's around 1,000 units out there, and we believe by the end of the year it will be around 1,500. So it's increasing quite fast, actually, at the moment. We sign access right agreements with actors that want to put up charging at their own expense on the street. We sign them their 10-year agreements, and they get the agreements without any costs. We require different kinds of fast charging standards and also normal charging standards that are within the European standards and so on. We also have some requirements with regards of the looks. They cannot be higher than 1.4 meters, and they also need to meet the color scheme of the city. So there should not be any advertisements really, or colorful things or something like that. It should blend into the environment. And they need to be in operation at least 95% of the time, or they can lose the agreement ahead of time. And the charging operators may charge for the electricity they sell, and they need to have 2 different types of payment methods. So it should be as available as possible for the drivers. And they also have to give data to the city. We need to know how they work and when they are in use and so on, for further knowledge for, coming build outs and so on. So when we started this, we mapped the inner city for good locations, and we had about 8 to 10 different requirements what a good location is. The most critical requirement is the 2.5 meter that you need to have between the charging pole and the facade of the house or whatever is on the other side, because we need to have 2.5 meters for sweeping the streets and plowing the streets in the winter and so on. And that's usually the most critical aspects to find good locations. So we have mapped the entire city. This just shows part of it, and so we have 25,000 possible locations for on-street charging, and they are on this map, and you can go very much closer. It's online, and it's actually a link here, and you might be able to get the presentation later on, so you can follow the link and walk through it, and then you can click on the different locations and you can see how many is available, and if it's already something built or if something is available. We have parking regulations on the fast charging places. We have 30 minutes, so you can only stand there for 30 minutes because we want it to be a charging place, not really a parking place. And it's actually free parking because we believe it's a charging place, not a parking place. And when it comes to normal charging, you can stay there for 3 hours during the day, and you pay ordinary parking fee. And that's according to the Swedish legislation that you cannot do rebates or anything like that. And then during the night, it's free parking, but then it's free parking for everyone, but you can stand there the entire night. So if you're a resident in the area, you don't have to wake up and move your car after 3 hours. And there's more charging streets coming. As I spoke, we're going to have at least 500 more by the end of the year. And we also are trying to prepare when we dig for other reasons, and it's a match in the map. We try to prepare. You can see this on the slide on the right picture, that there is like a little lid there, and we have prepared so that's a charging operator can come and just put up the pole then. And that's not actually, so that's also done in cooperation with the grid owner. So so that's one way to make it easier and less expensive, because that's the thing, it's expensive to dig in the streets, so that we prepare for these facilities once we are digging for other reasons. We also have increased our cooperation with the grid owner, and I think that's very good to have a good cooperation with them, and also increased cooperation with other stakeholders, because it's not only online or on street charging that's important. You know, you need charging in all different kinds of places, home charging and at maybe filling stations and so on. So we've started the Electrification Pact, which is a cooperation with different kinds of stakeholders, and we have regular meetings in order to see how we can cooperate and if we can do projects together and so on. And one other issue that we did through the Electrification Pact is that we had a competition to find new ways to make it cheaper for on-street charging. And one of the winner was this company who has who's putting up a yeah, you can see, I don't know what to call this. Like this is an extra piece of thing that you put out on the side, so that the electric cords, you don't have to dig. You can just, you know, put it on there. And also to charge from the light posts can also be a thing. It's not going to be very big to charge from the light post, because you have to have a match when it comes to a parking place and the light post. But we are changing all our street lights into LED, so we have an overcapacity in that system. And also it's a cheaper way, and you can get it on places where probably it would be too expensive to put up charging otherwise, and so on. So I think it's a very good complement, both of these things are. So we're doing tests with these now at the moment. They're being built, so I can tell you maybe in a year or so how it is working. So we also work with other things like home charging, because it's the most appreciated and it's easy to charge at home. And 90% of the Stockholmers live in a multifamily home. It's a simple installation, and there's state funding available for the multifamily home to acquire. So it's a very good option to do that. And it also increases the value of the property. And a lot of people that buy an apartment and so on are asking for this. So we have a information campaign called Fix Your Charging Point, and it is a website, and it also has different time we have webinars and also regular seminars, and we have meetings and small exhibitions where you can meet the suppliers of the charging equipment. So we are providing a neutral source of information to multifamily housing estate and also single family housing estates. And we've seen it's been very profitable, and a lot of people are visiting our events. And we can also see that a lot of the multifamily houses in Stockholm acquire the state funding. So we can see that it's making an effect. We've also looked at the off-street parking on all the real estate that the city of Stockholm owns. And we have found out that we have around 50,000 parking places ourselves that we control through housing companies or sports arenas or whatever. And some of them already have some charging, but we need more. And actually the politicians wants us to have 100% charging on all these facilities in the inner city and 80% in the suburbs by 2030. So we need to put up a lot of charging in a short period of time. So we've made internal guidelines for all the administrations and the companies within the city, so that they know, we'll get some guides how to go through with this process. And we also have a network now that we meet regularly in order to exchange information and maybe do procurements together and work together in this field. So that's also been very successful and very much appreciated. Well, I have a few more examples also when we are constructing new buildings in the city and the city owns the land and somebody else or it's building on city-owned land. we require them to put up a lot of charging. We also, of course, have an EV fleet ourselves, and we buy EVs. It's a first-hand choice for our city fleet. And we also have an EV car sharing scheme that we can use, and also private people, anybody can use when they want to. And we also require electric vehicles in different kinds of procurements with transportation services and so on in order to promote it. So I'm going to round up now with a few recommendations. I think it's very important to walk the talk and start with your own fleet, and also and also engage the drivers. They are great ambassadors and have great knowledge. And it's very important to involve the grid owner at an early stage because to have that cooperation is essential. I also wrote here, get the lawyers on board. And I found that it's not really a technical problem to do all this. At least it hasn't been. We know the technique, we can do it. It has more been a legal and administrative issue because Swedish legislation has not been adopted to electric vehicles, so it's been kind of tricky to do the access right agreement, or should you do some other kind of agreement, and how should you regulate the parking place and so on. That's been the most problematic, I think, and I probably think you have the same in your countries and your cities, that the legal aspects are important to tackle. So you need to get that help in the beginning. And then, of course, try and demonstrate everything in a small scale and fail and learn from that. And also be open to several kind of solutions, because there's not one thing to do here. There's different places where you want to charge, there's different operators involved, and you need to be open to different kinds of solutions. And also, of course, to exchange experience and learn from others. And that's why I'm very happy to be able to be here today and to learn from you and to also hear from other cities. So my last slide. So that's just, thank you very much for your attention.
Yes. Thank you, Eva. Very interesting. I already saw in the chat some questions coming up for you. After the next presentation, we will ask them to you. And because I think it's really interesting to discuss a little bit more on your strategy and the questions that the audience has.
Sure.
But now I give the floor to Angel about the city of Barcelona. And after Angel, we come back to the questions. So I hope, yeah, you are able to share your screen. We can see it perfectly. Okay, please, Angel, explain us what Barcelona does on charging infrastructure and smart charging.
Thank you very much for the Scale project and your presentation. Obviously, Barcelona, we are not in the figures like Stockholm. We are not in the range of two digits in the. We are less than 3% of cars, but we have more motorbikes, for example. Barcelona, just a background. Barcelona is a small city. Is only 100 square kilometers, 1.6 million inhabitants. So it's a very dense city with more or less 600,000 cars and 300,000 motorbikes. All the sustainable urban mobility plans requires to develop electric vehicle to achieve the goals. That is clear, I think, for all the cities. Our tale begins very years ago with an initial project from the Spanish government, the Movele plan, to push to implement chargers. In our case, we has tried to develop a network of chargers just for motorbikes. As in our country, we have several industries developing electric motorbikes. So we try to develop this kind of chargers. And great, we have some interesting developments and services, motorbike sharing, that is in the 10, 11, 12. But the main interest from our side is to keep respect to the parking criteria, to the parking arguments. So we push all the new chargers for cars in off-street premises, in off-street parking, mainly managed by the and owned by the municipality. So in this first step, all the cars must be charged on off-street, and motorbikes could be charged on a street. That was the plan, the charging network in the 12. You can see that is half of the chargers was for motorbikes, and the other in orange was the chargers for cars, mainly most of them off street. In the 13 appears the quick charger, and this quick charger is clear that needs shorter time to charge, and it will be difficult to implement, to be installed in garages. So we need to change a little bit our strategy, allowing chargers for cars on a street. Is not our initial intention to have chargers on a street, because a charger means to consolidate the use of public space to park and charge. And then we reduce the time of use of these chargers to 30 minutes, understanding that at 50 kilowatts, you can charge more or less 120 kilometers in only half an hour. So that was the new idea, this change in the strategy. And we established 4 kinds of charging infrastructure: the classical residential charge in the private sphere, the opportunity charge mainly in the private activities like shopping, restaurants, the emergency charge. This is the case of quick chargers, fast charging on a street, and probably managed by as a public service. This is our main idea. This is our main commitment to provide to the city emergency charge for all the cities, all the citizens, before to the implementation of new electric vehicles in the city. Outside of the city, probably we will develop the en-route charge with ultra-fast charging, but that is not the matter for the city. Is for that in the 18, we have approved and established a set of plans around climate change and air quality. One of them was the strategy of electromobility in Barcelona, that is consolidating this idea of a fast increase in vehicles for the municipal fleet, obviously, but also for the public transport, taxis, cabs, also for cars and motorbikes. That seems that implies that we need the same increase in charging, and is for that in the 4 pillars in the strategy we have a specific pillar for charging infrastructure, and we assign to a municipal company, the BSM is the Barcelona Municipal Services. We assign 2 entities. One entity is the CPO operator, the charging point operator, under the name, the trademark Endolla, and for an MSP services, where the trademark is SMO. We try to organize from the beginning this service, because Endolla will invest in chargers. Up to date, we have these near 1,000 chargers. 50 of them are quick chargers on the street, and all the other chargers are off the street in public managed parkings by the municipality. Our ratio today is 1.26 kilowatt per electric car, with more than 12,000 users per month and more than 80,000 registered users. you must understand that a lot of users in our network comes from the metropolitan area. Okay. The idea to apply these different entities allows us to offer this charging point infrastructure offered to privates, to other electromobility service private, to offer the services of charging independent of the charging point operator. That is the strategy for the 24 that we have almost achieved. That is the 95% of the citizens of the population has at least one fast charging point within 1 kilometer. That is just to give the citizens the idea that charging is available and you can charge there. This network obviously is not crowded, is not congested. We have no more than 80% of users of capacity per day, so we can increase the number of users easily in this on-street charging, fast charging. Also, in parallel, we have made a modification on the parking regulation, on off-street parking regulation for privates, in the idea that all the new parkings or parkings that has a rebuilding, a remodelation, or a change of uses must have at least 1 on 10 electrified places for cars and also 1 of 10 for motorbikes. And at least all the pre-installed parking, the backbone must be pre-installed from the beginning. But what we are seeing is that this demand needs to increase, to double the infrastructure every 2 years. That will lead to a situation where it's not only a question of investment, not only a question of money, but of budget, of municipal budget, but it's the question of to the capacity of the grid. For the question of the investment for the budget, we have also approved a special urban plan. It's a urban plan that provides the rules to install new recharge services in the refuel station. Is a legal document that forbids new refuel station and commits to shift this fuel station to recharge service station. That is in the idea that these privates will complement this offer on a street, will complement this offer on a street with a private investment and also with ultra-fast charging in the main routes around the city. Also in the idea to take in account the user, we are involved now in the eCharge for Drivers project, where several use cases are doing, like a plug and charge test, like enhancing the booking service with the small electromobility service application, like the battery swapping for light electric vehicles, like motorbikes or microcars. Also installed in a fuel station. But that is important for this meeting is we are trying to put in service a smart charging system in these off-street parkings. But our main issue is how to engage users, because it's not easy to explain the users that, okay, I will charge your car, but not now, maybe later, that will cost less for you, less for me, more interesting because we will have more renewable energy, etc. That is complex to explain to at least to the Barcelona users that this needs to make more rational the charging on garages, and that is important for us, not just to use more renewable energy, but also to have a balance. I think Eva has in the same case. If we are increasing the number of plugs, of number of charging points, we will increase proportionally the nominal power that we need, and that is not real. Finally, we will have 100% chargers installed in the garage, but really we don't need the total power equivalent to this 100%. But we need that the user understand this advantage of the smart charging. So we are focusing this in this project how the user could be convinced, could be informed about the advantage of the smart charging. Also, we have two other challenges in development. One of them is this kind of a small robot. This is a battery, is a mobile battery that could complement the situation in the transition when a parking is not completely installed. For example, you have the first floor completely installed, but not the second floor. And then how you will separate the electric cars and the not electric cars, the ICE cars from the others. Okay, you will admit all the cars, and if one electric car is not parked in front in a charger, you will use this moving battery to charge these other vehicles. Also, we are trying to have a low power but economic charging point to increase this growing of the number of chargers in these garages. And that is all. If you need more clarification, more questions, I keep able to do. Thank you.
Angel, very interesting also to see what's happening in Barcelona. Yeah, I think, Gert-Jan, if you can also open your camera, then we see everybody who is speaking about the cities today. And I got already in the chat some questions from the audience. The first ones were raised for Stockholm, and I'm sure that he is somewhere in the call, but I saw two questions from Frank Geerts, who is from Elat. And maybe you can open your speakerphone or your microphone, Frank, and ask them yourselves to Eva, because I think the two questions were really related to each other. So maybe you can share the questions that you had for Eva for Stockholm.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me, Edwin?
Yes, perfect. Yes.
Perfect. Then it works.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for all the interesting presentations. I learned a lot, to be honest. In Stockholm, you were talking about, Eva, about a subsidy, I believe, for home chargers.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what is the amount of subsidy that is given to home chargers, and are there any conditions for the charger that you implement in your home? And for conditions, I'm thinking, does it need to support smart charging? Are there requirements for cybersecurity, things like that?
Yeah, there are some requirements. It's different if it is on a single family house. You can do tax deductions on the installation, and that's maximum, I think it is 15,000 Swedish crowns or 50% of the costs. When it comes to multifamily housing, you apply for funding, and then you can get also maximum 50%, or I think it is 50,000 per charging unit, something like that. So it depends. So, but maximum 50% is what you can get. And yes, there are some requirements. It has to be type 2. It has to be fulfill the European requirements. And it also, you need to be able to track the amount of electricity used and also to be able to bill. You don't have to bill, but you should be able to bill maybe in the future. But so there are some requirements like that goes with it.
Okay, and Angel was also talking about the question about installing installing chargers, but then from a user perspective, introducing smart charging.
Yeah.
So the question about that. So for
So
home charging.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, the different techniques now to balancing the loads and so on are coming down in price. So it's and it's offered by more or less all the different companies that sell the equipment, and it's something that's very good to have because then you don't have to upgrade your facility as much, and you can actually put more charging facilities available. So it's very much in use.
Yeah, but it's not a separate requirement for the subsidy to say that it needs to be smart charging or bidirectional charging ready or something like that.
No, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Frank. Another question also related to Stockholm, and also I think a lot related to the question that Frank raised already. I'm already looking at V2G, so vehicle to grid in Stockholm, and how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, we are looking to it, but it's complicated with the legislation. So it's something that we are, talking to the government about changing a few requirements and so on. There has been a few tests, not in Stockholm, and they have had to have what do you call it? They have a special permit from the government to do so. So we're trying to fix the legislation parts as it is now. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Maybe also to Gert-Jan and Angel. Gert-Jan, yeah, you are in Utrecht also, but you also did the research broader, so for several cities. Do you see similar stories in other cities? And how is Utrecht doing? Because you are the bidirectional city of the world, I think. What are the issues that you have there?
Yeah, for us, our main issue there at the moment is congestion. It's really we have a serious congestion problem in Utrecht, in the Netherlands in general, but especially in Utrecht and also Amsterdam, for example. So we need short-term solutions for that, but also mid to longer-term solutions for that. And vehicle to grid, our building up our vehicle to grid ecosystem. We really see that as a big promise for the midterm and longer term. But of course, we need to have the vehicles in more, in a larger amount, of course, than available to really solve congestion. Not solve, or at least add to reducing congestion on our energy grid. But good to mention is that we're working on that for years already, and also sometimes two steps forward, one step back. But along the while we're working, of course, with our DSO closely, but also with the universities, and we're learning more and more also from analyzing data and speaking to all the stakeholders involved. And and more it's becoming clear that what we expect will probably be the right way forward. That V2G can be a really significant solution for a more efficient grid and more cost-effective grid. Really, also based on scientific research. So, next to our living lab experiences. Yeah.
Okay. And then Angel, I think what's really interesting in Barcelona, if I compare it to Stockholm, for example, you have also a lot of motorbikes and scooters in a lot of cities in Spain. I'm there regularly, so I see a lot of scooters driving around. You are already focusing on electric scooters and motorbikes, and it's also your strategy is related to that. Are these also the same issues? For example, we always talk about multimodality. And also related to vehicle to grid, most of the people think about passenger cars, but there are also other, for example, trucks, what we are thinking about. What is with motorbikes and scooters the case here?
Well, in V2G, we have not experienced nothing important. We have in the Catalan Research Institute, we have some experiences, but as Eva said, the actual regulation, the actual legislation don't allow to consider the vehicle to grid. But in the case of the battery swapping, that is a good solution for motorbikes. We are considering that in a big installation with 30, 40, 50 batteries that will be achieved, we will have a lot of kilowatt hours stored there, and probably there will be a good solution with a static battery to be swapped, but it's a static battery, so you know how much time you will have the battery there. Probably with this installation, we will have an opportunity to have a payback, a revenue from this vehicle, not vehicle to G, but this battery for vehicle to G. And that is our main idea, linking motorbikes, battery swapping, and vehicle to grid. In other side with cars, really we are in a very initial stage. We know the technology, but in our case, we are not in this situation yet. We are more interested in how to convince users that we will have a lot of plugs, but maybe not all the plugs will be active simultaneously, and how we will explain that to the user. I don't know if in Stockholm you have large experience on that, but for us, we are 6 months ago trying to have experience on that, and users don't understand the need of to share the information that how many time, how long you will stay in the parking, how many kilowatts you need, how many kilometers you need, when you will leave, etc., etc. This is a problem on personal data. Well, that for us is a barrier to implement the smart charging for users. The smart charging is developed and used in private companies where they will manage their operation. They know when the vehicles, the van will need to be charged, and in private they are using the smart charging, but not for the general user. It's more complicated, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Eva, maybe to respond to that, or to what
Well, it's
Angela
very
explained?
different for different operators. And I mean, the multifamily housing estates that put up charging, a multifamily housing estate, it can be owned by somebody else, but it can also be owned by the people who live in the estate, and they usually select a board of the people that live there that kind of runs the place and take the day-to-day decisions and so on. And of course, they are not experts here, but they are the one who procure the chargers and put them up and so on. And I think there is a big understanding within that they want to keep the costs down, and that they want to, you know, help their neighbors, so to say, so that you don't drive up the costs and have to be too costly. So then usually they can, you know, you can program this in whatever way you want, that you know, if there's many of them that are hooked up, it will go on a little slower, or it will go on after 11 o'clock in the evening when you know, stoves and everything else is shut off. So you can like program this differently, or you can say that if there is a car that comes in that is fairly empty, it gets first priority, but the one that has a lot of charging get less, but everybody will be charged by 7 o'clock in the morning, or whatever you decide to have. So that's kind of up to how you want to do it there. And for Stockholm Parking Company, they also do it differently because in what garage they are. But usually they have more charging now than they have vehicles that wants to charge. So then they can also steer according to what's else going on in the facility. And some of their garages are down in the rock in the mountain, and they have a lot of equipment to keep that environment, and they can shut that equipment off if there's a lot of cars coming to charge. So they do all different ways. So you can steer within the other cars, but you can also steer towards the rest of the house or things that are on top of you or whatever it is. So the possibilities are actually endless.
Do you have any options also for future? Because one of the questions was a substantial number of charges in Stockholm is also going up a lot. Is
Yeah,
your system equipped to handle that and simultaneous actions, maximum
but
power?
both yes and no, because we have well, in Sweden it's a long country, and most of the energy is produced in the north, and the majority of people live in the south. So you need to transport it down to the south. So our limitation right now is the limitation coming into Stockholm. There's, coming into Stockholm is that we need, but Sweden in general, we're producing more energy than we consume ourselves. We are right now exporting, so we have enough, but we need to be able to transport it easier. And also within Stockholm, we have a majority of our grid is from the 50s, and it's been upgraded, and in some areas it's rather good, and in some areas it's not so good, so it needs more upgrading. So it's going to be upgraded regardless, because that was, it's time. But now, since we are so then so there could be an area where you want to put up a fast charger, for instance, and it's going to be quite costly because you need to upgrade that area. But there is another area where it's not going to be as costly. So we have the issue, but we can tackle it right now. But it's something that we are really looking into because of, like I said, in 2030, we believe there's going to be much more. But it's not the electric cars that is actually the problematic. It's everything else that's being electrified, being more and more electricity towards it. And right now the steel industry, for instance, in Sweden is also trying to be use hydrogen and go on electricity instead of using coal. So we're shifting other parts as well. And when we're talking maybe charging heavy vehicles, fast charging them and things like that, then you have more power. So actually for the cars, that's not the big thing, but when you look at everything, you have to, the grid issue is something that we are tackling and working with, yes.
It's a very, very big issue. And I'm sure, Gert-Jan, because you interviewed together with Polis a lot of cities, I think that's an issue everywhere, right?
Yeah, it depends a bit per country, what we found. So it was very interesting to talk to many different people, because some countries did invest more in the electricity network in general, and some other countries, like for example France, they partly use nuclear energy, but also partly gas. So in general, that electricity network is already larger, you could say, or wider, but it also really differs per area and also per city. So bottom line is, I think we here in the Netherlands and Utrecht especially are having the biggest problems, or are one of the cities having the biggest problems. But also it's also because, for example, the e-mobility transition is a bit further here than it is in many other countries. So their time will come later on.
Thank you. One question from the audience, and it's about variable tariffs on public residential charges. What is your opinion? Maybe all three of you. What is your opinion about that? Maybe Angel, maybe you can start with answering that question.
Because that is the question I arise, is how to explain to the user that my offer as a EMSP, my offer is not permanent, is not a fixed offer. I can see I can say next 2 hours the price will be 20 cents, and the next 2 hours will be 30 cents. But it depends on the wind. It depends on the sunny day, or it depends on the congested grid. I think we have some problems with the legal understanding of the needs of the user, and also legal problems to offer and smart charging. So because the customer could choose what are the power, what are the energy they need, and they must know previously what is the price. And this, if you goes to a global, general, flexible, smart charging, that is, it seems that is the most interesting situation, even with a vehicle to grid. All these questions will be in doubt, because you don't know when you will recharge it, you don't know how much you will pay, etc. Then you must provide a lot of information from your private side, and that could be in conflict with the laws of private information, the private data, etc. That is the case when you try to commit, to engage the user in the smart charging solution.
I understand. Maybe additional information, Gert-Jan or Eva, on this?
Yes, I'm also curious for Eva's answer.
But I'm not really sure that I understood the
okay.
question. What
Yeah,
is
well, that's also related maybe to some countries, because you have different tariffs,
Yeah.
variable tariffs, like
Yeah.
30 cents or 40 cents in an hour when
Yeah.
you have a lot of solar or wind power.
Yeah.
And then in other, you have higher tariffs that you can
Yeah, it
sell the
depends on
electricity.
what I mean. In Sweden, you can, if you're in your home, for instance, you can say that you want to have like a fixed tariff, and then you pay one price, and then you can say that you have a moving tariff, and it moves like you're saying. And with the different winters, like last winter, it was very obvious that if you had this fixed tariff, you could run your washing machine at night, and it's still half the price than if you would run it during the day. So I think that actually people got very aware of that, and you can like follow on your phone, how the price goes up and down, and how much did your daughter's shower cost you, and so on. So I think that is something that's it really has been so, and that I think that also motivates you to charge your car when it's cheaper in the night at home, rather than to charge it in the middle of the day when it's more expensive. Because in Sweden we have a lot of industry that uses the electricity during the day, so usually it's more expensive during the day and less expensive in the night when the industry are not using as much. And in Sweden we have a lot of hydropower, about 40-45% is hydropower, but we also unfortunately has a lot of nuclear power, and then we have solar and wind that is also increasing a lot. So it's been very also interesting to put up solar panel on your houses, for instance, and connect that to a charger. And also now they're selling equipment where you can connect it to a battery, so you'd have like a home battery as well, that you can like take the solar when it's sun is shining, store it in your battery, and charge your car when you need to do that. So those kits or whatever, it's actually sold now together, and that's something that's people have started to do and put up and so on. And it's actually if you want to put up a solar equipment on your house, it takes a while, because there's a lot of people that want them, so it's a queue more or less. Yeah,
It's very popular.
yeah.
Gert-Jan, maybe last answer from your side, because also in
for
public
sure.
space it is possible, right?
Yeah, it is possible, but there are a lot of things to take into account, I think, in this on the subject. First of all, at the backend side, for the CPO side, there are variable tariffs already. So somehow they need to earn money. So in the end, or if you pay fixed price, in the end you pay a plus on your fixed price to accommodate for variable tariffs. So I see a solution in that, for example, at your EMSP, you can choose for like a fixed tariffs or variable tariffs as you can do at your own electricity contract back home. But also, if you choose for variable prices, then it needs to be really transparent. And at the moment, that's a thing, especially after the energy crisis, and now many differences in prices between different EMSPs and different CPOs. I think this is not the right moment, and we first need to get everything more transparent and more balanced in the electricity market. Balanced prices between CPOs and EMSPs.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we have to.
But in
Sorry.
the end, there should be an incentive to charge off peak and maybe have an extra, pay extra if you really want to charge in the peak, because our electricity networks just need that.
Yeah, so with the cars, with the batteries in the cars, you can really act to that. That is a very good conclusion, I think. Another conclusion I want to raise, because we have to end. We are already running over time. But what I saw is that cities have a lot of similar issues if you look at charging, but there are also a lot of differences. So it's really the region, it's the city itself, which is really important. So therefore, you can learn a lot from each other. But we always see that cities have very specific issues that you have to deal for yourself with. So, but it's really interesting that you have this research, Gert-Jan, together with Polis and together with the Scale organizations. So it will be available on the website also. And also, I will share my screen to let you know about the last parts or the next parts of the sessions that we have, because we are now in session 2. I hope you can see my screen, because in October we have a very interesting third session, which is about the consumer behavior, consumer perspective, the needs and challenges, including smart charging and V2X. I think that one is very interesting. That's one of the work packages also in the Scale that did a lot of research on this. We don't know the exact date yet, but it will be somewhere in mid-October, so in a month's time from now. And the fourth session, which is the last of this series, will be about hard and software requirements for EVs, charging stations and CPOs for V2X. And that will be before the end of this year. We expect it to be in November. So I hope to see you all back by then. And of course, let's stay tuned. We have the website of Scale, where also this webinar will be presented in a couple of days or week. And of course, on LinkedIn and in Twitter, we get in touch. So please, everybody, thank you for being here today, and see you next time in the third and the fourth session. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.